All right, thank you everyone for joining us today for shoring up recruitment strategy during and beyond COVID-19, presented by Indeed.com and hosted by iRecruit. I know that you're already familiar with who Indeed is, but if you're not familiar with iRecruit, iRecruit is an applicant tracking software with tax credit screening, paperless onboarding, integrated background screening, texting, and a lot more. And of course, with iRecruit, you can push your jobs out to Indeed.com to find and attract the most qualified candidates efficiently using a free or a sponsored job posting. Today, we do have everyone on mute, but if you do have a question at any time, please drop it into the Zoom chat box for me, and we'll try to answer them towards the end of this webinar. With us today is Christina Broussard, and she is a recruitment evangelist with Indeed and has spent her entire career working with recruitment teams, people like you, across multiple industries to optimize their strategies, performance, and online talent attraction, candidate experience, of course, and recruitment technology. As a member of Indeed's Employer Insights team, Christina has helped hundreds of employers optimize their recruitment solutions and make the key hires that they need to grow their businesses. Christina pairs platform data with industry trend analysis to share Indeed's story and bring the value and impact of the company's programs and solutions to life, which is awesome. So let's go ahead. I'm going to stop my screen sharing here and invite you, Christina. Let's turn things over to you. Thank you.
Wonderful. Thank you so much, Lindsay. I really appreciate the intro and the welcome, and really excited to be here with everybody today. Just as I get my screen shared for everybody, and we get ready to get started. Lindsay mentioned that, everybody's familiar with Indeed, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention, just sort of an overall arching statement about Indeed. Certainly we are the world's #1 job site with over 250 million unique visitors coming to Indeed to look for jobs monthly. And we have a presence in over 60 countries, so not just in the US, but beyond. Speaking of beyond, I think that, if someone had asked us in April 2020, maybe, if we would still be in this pandemic in January 2021, I think most of us would have been more hopeful and said, oh, I certainly hope not. But yet here we are. We continue to fight the pandemic in many different ways. But of course, what we'll focus on today is really how we can, learn a little bit more about this environment, think about job seekers in this environment, and how we as employers can, really rise to the times. Understand a little bit more about, how we can position our opportunities, how we can position our companies in really attracting great candidates, despite the situation that we're all in. So that's what we'll spend most of our time talking about today. And I'll make a quick plug once again for the chat box. If you do have questions for us that come up throughout the presentation, definitely encourage you to send over a quick chat, and Lindsay will be helping me a little bit later work through some of those questions that you all may have. So, I think, it's no secret that our lives, it's certainly changed a lot as employers and job seekers alike in the last we're close to 11 months now. Indeed, specifically as an organization, started global work from home March 4th of 2020. And, I know while many organizations haven't had that luxury, and, some are sort of still trying to figure out how best to accommodate employees and really look out for their best interests and safety, there's been change in many different ways. And I think one of the things that is a helpful reminder for us, particularly as employers and people who are looking to hire and bring on new talent to our organization, is the concept of empathy, right? When I think about empathy, particularly in the job seeking process, within our role as employers in the application, the candidate experience, and onboarding process, is remembering how it feels. This we've got in front of us here is the Holmes and Ray stress scale. And I think, we all could probably, hopefully not dwell, but think back to a time, in the last year where things were stressful, right? And can really relate to this. What's also important to understand is some of these boxes up here on the on the upper side of this scale. These are all career-focused stresses that we have in our lives. And some of us have experienced these, right? Maybe trouble with our boss. Maybe, one day we walk in and now we have a new hat that we're wearing because we work in a small business, and that's what needs to be done. So that change in responsibilities at work can be, really disruptive and stressful for us. Certainly, if we look at that change in working hours or conditions, all the way down to dismissal from work, which we know many Americans have had to, experience in the last year due to, COVID and changes in the business and changes in, just our lifestyle. And we can see, if we sort of align them with those pieces on the bottom that really talk about a lot of life changes that, again, we've also had experiences with, it's helpful for us to remember that these job seekers are in a place of stress. And certainly we are too, in keeping our small businesses going, in, trying to adapt to new workplace, ideals and regulations. It's stressful for everybody, but really leading with empathy, particularly during this time, serves everyone really well. And empathy, can be shown in a lot of different ways. And certainly where, the core of Indeed, the Indeed we all know, Indeed.com, where we can post our jobs and allow job seekers to search and learn more about us. We can even show empathy and who we really are before they talk to a human, right? And that's really in these two areas that we'll focus on today, within the content of our job postings. We would call that job content, as well as our employer brand, who we are and what we stand for. And we'll talk about some data and some things that really, particularly in the last year, have really stood out to job seekers, and think about some ways that we can also go back to our business and think about how we can, infuse some empathy, infuse some humanity into our job content and our brand as we look to, really share our authentic, self and truth, and who we really are as an employer, as we're looking to inspire those job seekers to consider us as the next step in their career. So the first thing that we'll really talk about is that job content piece. Now, this is, a lot of colors here on the slide, and really takes a global view of flexible work. In looking over time, we can see that it wasn't just COVID that really drove people to want to look for that flexible work environment, that ability to work from home or have that flex schedule where they're in the office 2 days, out of office 3 days, for example. And we can see that in job search behavior. So we saw, again, across the world, and the gray line, the dark gray line is the US. So we're, looking about that 250 line there at the far right. So we can see that that has increased over time, starting in 2015, that there's been this need and curiosity and desire for more flexible work for Americans, certainly, and global citizens as well. But if we just take a look at what was happening last year, so that last chart brought us up to 2019. Now just looking at 2020, wow, we can see a spike, right? So while flexible work was interesting and certainly people were wanting to, explore those opportunities, COVID certainly made that, really elevate in importance at the start of, where many states were going into lockdowns and quarantines and that sort of thing. And while we can see it start to level off, drop a little bit even, during the summer, we can see it start to increase as well, right? Maybe as people go back, our kids go back to school, right? Maybe during the summer I was able to deal with it, but now that kids are back in school and maybe they're not in school, they're at home, I need to have that flexibility within my work. I need to be able to work remotely. And so we can see that the job seekers are certainly starting to look for more of these types of opportunities. Now, on the employer side, we also see them responding as well with offering these types of opportunities. So when we look at those job postings that have those keywords in there, like remote, like work from home, we see that also has almost steadily increased since that April timeframe. So, there was a lot of scrambling happening between March and April as businesses were trying to figure out how we were going to, make this work. And then as that figured out, and as, certainly we went through, some bumps in the road, that started to be, a lot more present in some of these things like job content. So as you all are thinking about your businesses and you're thinking about the opportunities that you have for candidates, when there are those remote, those flexible, those work from home opportunities that exist, we want to show it. We want to make sure that we're including that into our job postings and into the job content itself so that job seekers are aware. We want to show up in these types of searches for sure, right? Not everybody, though, is searching remote. There are some people that would search for a job title, right? And then also be interested in learning about that remote opportunity. And so again, we want to make sure that if that exists for us, that we share that within the body of the ad itself. Now, certainly, as I mentioned, we've got lots of people that are coming to search for jobs on Indeed each month, trying to find the next step in their career. And when they search for jobs, they use those keywords, right? They might use something specific like, financial analyst, or they might look for, customer service representative, or they might look for just remote. Show me all the remote jobs, or show me who's hiring right now. The job content for a lot of us is going to be our opportunity to set that first impression with a job seeker. We might come from a big international or nationwide brand that is well known and might have a little bit of that oomph that we, sort of get to automatically have without a lot of work on our part, when we have that brand name. But, if we have a small business, we might not be very well known. And so when a job seeker is first, learning about us, we want to make sure that we're making a good impression on them. Just as we would expect them to make a good first impression on us in the resume and the interview processes, we want to make sure that we're giving them a great first impression of us as well. And so we have that opportunity within the job content, within how we display the opportunity to really share who we are. What makes us different? Of all of the customer service representative, of all of the finance director, of all of the account manager roles that are out there and available, why me? Why do you want to choose me? Right? Think about that. We do that the same way with a resume, right? We look at the 25 resumes that we get in and we say, who's telling the best story? Who's made a great first impression? You're moving to the top of the list, right? Same thing with the job posting. So we want to make sure that we're, thinking about how we can share who we are and what makes us different, why we should be considered as the next step in their career. And I want to talk through a couple of different things that we want to think about within job content, particularly as it relates to, some of the challenges that we're all facing as a part of COVID. So the first is within job titles. I encourage every employer that I talk with to be clear and concise. Don't use that internal language. If you call your receptionist a director of first impressions, awesome. But for the rest of the world, that director of first impressions is a receptionist, right? Or, a front office, a front desk agent, right? And so we want to use that title that is clear, it's concise, and it relates to the job seeker what the job actually is. We don't want those sort of, I say, like curiosity clicks. So adding things like ninja into our job titles or, something a little bit snazzier just is not the right sort of thought to think about when we're composing those job titles. And I'd encourage you to keep it short as well. So keep it to 5 words or less. Again, some of our job titles, have lots of words in them. And some we get a little creative. Again, I'd encourage you to just be direct. And then think about if there are remote opportunities, if there are full-time opportunities. We know at Indeed, we've seen job seekers search these terms, as we saw in the data, more and more. So if that's something that we offer, like remote, like full-time, go ahead and put that in the job title. And then that sort of helps your presence on Indeed, as well as relay to the job seeker the stuff that they're looking for as well. Now let's think about the job content, those job descriptions. What we want to think about here is, and again, particularly if you're a small business or a business where people might not right off the bat understand what it is that you do, tell them, right? Show them right there. This is our first opportunity for a first impression on this job seeker. Let's use that. Let's use that opportunity to share with them who we are, what it is that we're looking for to contribute to our team. And again, like, what are those differentiators? Why should they choose you? I think it's also really important to continue to really be authentic as well as empathetic to our current situation, right? There are lots of jobs right now that we are, relying on, certainly as just individuals, right? I need to go to the grocery store and, get food, or I need to, be able to have a shopper do that for me, right? There are people that need to be out in public. They can't work remotely. And that's okay, right? But what we want to do is say how we're keeping our employees safe. Right? What have you done during this crisis to protect our employees, right? So maybe it's, that the PPE is provided. Maybe it's, maybe your workers have to go into customers' houses, right, to, hook up cable or to, paint or something like that, right? What are you doing in those environments? What if a customer, berates you about your mask, right? Like, what are some of the things that you're doing as employers to really to show that you care, to show that you understand that safety is probably a little bit higher in terms of their needs right now, and how can we show what we're doing? Certainly, if we look at a lot of different job postings that may not have changed in 7 years, that will help us stand out as well. If we're taking that step to add in that statement, right? Add in that 1 or 2 sentences that says, we're doing remote interviews to help keep you safe. If you get the job, or employees on the job also get PPE and a bottle of hand sanitizer for their truck, right? Or something like that, just to really acknowledge the situation and show what you've done. One of the things that we hear from job seekers in all of the surveys that we do is that they want to know that they're really a part of something. They want to be a part of an organization that aligns with their own personal mission and values. So we need to share that, right? And that might just be a statement in our job content. We can be a lot bigger and explain a lot more within our branding, which we'll get to in just a moment. But talk about the impact that this role has, right? If you're a roofer, right? Like, you're helping us, by doing a great job, you're helping us continue to grow and get referrals, and we'll pay you for referrals, right? Just a quick little statement that says you matter and you're playing a role in our company's success. And lastly, just sort of in line with, authenticity, empathy, we also want to be transparent as well. Some of our roles are remote right now, but once everything gets settled and we get to go back to, maybe normal life, we're going to need you to come into the office 5 days a week, right? So let's just share that, right? This job is temporarily remote, and will be returned to the office in the future, maybe September 2020 or 2021, right? Just share that information so that they know. They want to be able to make an informed decision. Well, I'm not going to want to go back into the office after I've worked remote, so this is not the job for me, right? Guess what? As an employer, you don't want that candidate either, because your values don't match. You need somebody that's going to want to be in the office. They don't want to be in the office. Let's not go down the road with that candidate, because you're ultimately not a match. Even thinking about the timeline of the hiring process. That's a great way, especially for those smaller businesses that are on the phone today as well. This might be something that you have a leg up on some of the bigger brands that might have a little bit more red tape around what they can include in their job content. Put in there, we're looking to hire 4 customer service representatives by the end of February, right? Or to start March 1st, right? We can put some of that stuff in there. And wow, that information is so valuable to job seekers. Job seekers, tell us all the time that they feel, they're submitting resumes and then they don't hear back. It's that black hole. And Indeed is doing a lot of work to try and mitigate that and to come up with ways that help on both sides, both employers and candidates, not create that black hole and not experience that black hole. But certainly the more transparent that we can be, the better. And then lastly, like I mentioned, what our organization is doing to protect our employees. What are we doing to protect our interviewees, our candidates, right? And including some of those statements into your posting is part of that first impression and a great way for you to, really differentiate yourself. So I I feel like most people on the call are probably familiar with this screen within iRecruit. Certainly, we have that opportunity to post directly from iRecruit into or onto Indeed. And as we can see within the area down here towards the bottom, we have that opportunity to post our job to Indeed for free, or we can even sponsor our job directly in the iRecruit workflow, so that it has more visibility on Indeed, as well as really works to get in front of the right types of job seekers for a longer period of time. So certainly encourage you to take a look at that option and make sure that you're leveraging the opportunity to really add that efficiency in your process, as well as help yourself out in getting more candidates to see and certainly apply to your jobs. Another opportunity that iRecruit and Indeed have partnered on, and is something that can be sort of account-wide, is this concept of easy apply. So one of the things that we've heard directly from candidates is that 30% of candidates won't spend more than 15 minutes on an application, right? And if they make six figures or above, it's even more, right? Maybe they feel like their time is a little bit more valuable. And so, one of the things that we know that can get a little crazy, especially if we've got a lot of people in the boardroom making the decision on our application process, we want to collect a lot of information up front. And, while that has its place and is helpful in a lot of ways, it also can deter candidates from actually completing our application process overall. And so Indeed has Indeed Apply. And as an iRecruit customer, you have the opportunity to sort of activate Indeed Apply on your jobs that you send over to Indeed. Well, what that means is that job seekers have the opportunity to apply more seamlessly to our jobs. They have the ability to apply using their Indeed resume that they've already created and uploaded, as well as, that information being fed over to iRecruit. So easy and big wins on both sides of the equation. It's fast and simple for talent to apply to our jobs, and then we get that information, we get that insight from these candidates directly into iRecruit. The other good thing about Indeed Apply, one of my favorite features, is that it's also mobile optimized. I mean, how many of us have our resume as a file on our mobile phones? I don't. I think would I have to download Dropbox or Box, or I'd have to figure out a way to get my resume on my phone so that I could apply on a mobile device. Well, on Indeed, 72% of our traffic comes on a mobile device. And so certainly having that mobile optimization within this Indeed Apply, in addition to allowing those job seekers to use a previously uploaded resume to Indeed, we can see that we are able to really capture more of that interest in our postings using this feature. And it's free for you as employers as well. Another thing that I wanted to mention to everybody as well is Indeed assessments. I think that, when I think about skills, and I think about soft skills in particular, and I also think about these times of COVID, right? When a lot of people lost their jobs, right? And maybe that job doesn't exist anymore, right? Or it's much less frequently seen in the world. How can I show as a candidate what my skills are, what I can do? My job title doesn't look like anything like you're looking for, but my skills are a match. And Indeed assessments is a free way for candidates to show that they do have some of these skills that we as employers are looking for. Now, I mentioned soft skills. Some of them are things like critical thinking and work ethic and timeliness, right? And some are a little bit more, tactical and job related, like we can see this example for accounting, right? That accounting bookkeeping one might not be relevant for all of our roles, but maybe that attention to detail is something that is, really interesting and something that we find important in candidates. As a bonus, a lot of these things are not listed on their resume, right? I don't have on my resume that I have, a high attention to detail, but I do, right? So if I had taken that attention to detail assessment, you would know that going into that conversation with me. And so Indeed assessments free for candidates to use as well as for employers, and we also have the ability for you to, send over a link to candidates to take an assessment, after they apply or before they apply. So moving on from content, let's think a little bit about employer brand, who we are and what do we stand for. I think, if we think about sort of our everyday life, for me, I have certainly increased the amount of Uber Eats orders that I have made in the last 11 months than in the prior 11 months. And I'm reading reviews, right? I want to understand for these new restaurants that I want to support because they're small businesses and I want to be able to support them, but are they good? Like, am I going to regret it? Or has it been like a good, do they serve good food? And so we read those reviews just as a part of everyday life, right? Whether it's a restaurant, whether it's a movie, before we invest those, 2 hours in a movie, we want to make sure that it's good and it's going to be worth our time. We think back to sort of that stress scale and, the amount of effort that job seekers spend in the application process, the interview process, and they might not even get the job, right? Wow, they're investing a lot of time, right? And so just as I want to make sure that 2 hours of time that I'm going to invest in that movie or that meal is going to be worth it, certainly on that larger scale, a job, like the amount of time I'm going to spend in the process, in addition to the job that's going to take up 8+ hours a day for me for, unknown numbers of weeks and months, I want to be sure that it's going to be good, that it's going to be worth my time, and that this is the right place for me. So we see that job seekers also want to see and hear from current and former employees, is this place good? Like, does this place take care of you? Does this place, encourage your development? What is it like? And job seekers tell us that they're reading reviews before they apply, after they apply, even as they're going through that interview process. They're going back to really make sure, did I make the right decision? Is this a good decision? Should I continue, right? And so certainly on Indeed, we have a place that holds our current and our former employees that have left reviews on Indeed. There is a place where those are housed, and it's called your company page. The good news is if you've posted a job on Indeed with your company name, you have a company page. And so what I think a good takeaway for everybody on the call, just to double check, just to make sure, when you go to Indeed, as I've highlighted up here at the top, you'll want to click on company reviews. So go to Indeed.com, click on company reviews. And then on this Why Join Us page, you'll see again over here on the right-hand side, highlighted in orange, claim this company page. This is a link, right? You'll need to log in with your employer account on Indeed, but you want to make sure that you claim this company page. What this does is it opens up a new channel for you to communicate with job seekers who you are. And you can do it with, instead of just words, now we can use images and now we can use videos to really tell our story, tell who we are, show what we did for our employees during COVID-19. And there's lots of opportunities that we have here as well. Over the last couple of months, we've seen the amount of time that job seekers are spending on an Indeed company page really grow over 40%. So there's more time that job seekers are spending learning about us as a company. And, I've anonymized this page so to protect the innocent. But, as you can see, if this was your Indeed company page, a job seeker found your job and then went over to your company page to see what you were all about and sees this, not such a good story here, right? So the good news is this is free. This is something that every employer has, and we encourage you to take advantage of the opportunity to tell your story. Now, this is an example of what Indeed has done on their Why Join Us page. Again, these are going to be things that we want to think about. What do we stand for? Who are we, right? We are the best X in town or in the business, right? We value employee, employee work-life balance, right? Or inclusion, right? Diversity, inclusion, and belonging is an important topic that has really risen in importance over the last year as well. So maybe that's something that we've also worked on as a company that we can also showcase to job seekers that we also care about. Again, if I am, a non-white, cisgendered, male or female, and I come here, I can see that I belong. And that's really what job seekers want to see, right? They want to see that they belong here. Are there people that look like me? And is that authentic, right? I have to share, we certainly have the, I'll say like the easy way out of maybe using a stock image that has, lots of different, types of people with different backgrounds, different races, different genders. But I would encourage you to be authentic. One of the things that our leader of diversity, inclusion, and belonging at Indeed shares is that, a job seeker can see pretty quickly when they walk through the door if what they saw online is actually what exists. And so I encourage you again, don't put it on here to, because you think that's the right thing to do. Put it on there because it's who you are, who your company is. Because that's really what this page is meant to do. Show job seekers what it's like to work here. Other ideas that I'll share for the Why Join Us page, particularly in places like healthcare, in warehousing, day of the life, right? Think about, how can we show a video that we shot with our iPhone on, following a nurse around for the day, or, following around, an intern even, right? I would encourage you to think about this from a, hey, here's a focus area for us in terms of recruiting. So we need to hire a lot of X, right? Sales reps maybe, or, this is like the most often open position that we have in the company. So I want to highlight that. So those are really effective. Job seekers really want to, get the feel for what that day-to-day looks like. And again, what are some of those values that you all have, and really bringing that to light here on that Why Join Us page. I think also important, and certainly within the context of our conversation today, we don't want to avoid the conversation around the pandemic, around COVID-19. What have we done for our employees? What are we doing, right? I was just chatting with a small rural hospital chain the other day, and I was talking about hey, was there like a local insurance company that brought you guys lunch and sponsored lunch for you all because just to thank you? That's a great thing to show to candidates, right? Wow, we're a part of an organization. I would be in a role where my impact is seen. Yeah. And of course, it's COVID related as well. Not all of your content needs to be COVID related, but certainly the closer you are to the pandemic, the more I would encourage you to showcase that sort of update within your Indeed company page. Okay, so again, just sort of overall thinking about things that we can apply to our own employer brand, our own way of sharing who we are. You know, it's really just, it's important to promote a lot of these things to job seekers. You know, a lot has changed in the last year, and I think we're all still trying to figure out a lot of that. But empathy really wins and really expands throughout a lot of these things. We understand that it's hard for job seekers and you want to pick the right next organization for you. Let us show you why that's us, right? And here's what that looks like. Here's how we approach work. Here's how we think about community. Here are the different service projects that we do that really reflect our value of service. Again, making sure that we are showing that, because that is who we are, right? And so we want to share that story with candidates. Okay. So, you know, I think, you know, before we jump into any Q&A that there might be, I just wanted to share a couple of resources that are free that everyone has access to that I'd encourage you to take a look at. First one is the Hiring Lab. So we have a whole economist team that they are economists. That is what they do. They study the market. They study all of the government data as well, and share these findings in a voice that makes sense to non-economists. So I would definitely encourage you to check out the Hiring Lab. It's hiringlab.org. You can also sign up for email alerts. I would say it's maybe a little bit more recently, just because, of course, there's a lot more going on and a lot more that people are paying attention to. Normally, I would say maybe once a week, you might get an email update with a new blog post. The other one is Lead with Indeed. So this is essentially our blog for folks who are recruiters or in TA, or if that's just one of the hats that you're wearing. There's a lot of content here that's written, there's videos, there's podcasts, lots of great stuff that's all about the world of talent. If you're interested in information about DI&B, you know, initiatives and how to get started and things like that, there's information on there. Employer brand, how to use Indeed better. There's lots of information that is all free and, you know, available for you to access and learn more. So we'd love to have you on one or both of those sites and learning more from what we're seeing in the market. And lastly, I'll just share, you know, I'm really thankful to the iRecruit team for hosting me today, and for you all that signed up and joined our call today. Really thankful for you all and your attention. Indeed is here to help. You know, we want to make sure that we're, you know, helping both employers and job seekers during and beyond this pandemic. And, you know, I think we'll all working together, we'll all survive together. So I think with that, Lindsay, I'll go ahead and pass it back over to you. And, you know, if we have any Q&A, I'm happy to contribute.
All right. Thank you, Christina. That was a fantastic presentation. Again, thank you everyone who also had joined us. If you do have any questions, please feel free to drop them into the Zoom chat box right there. Yeah, I see. Says thank you, Christina from Ramiro. Yep, that was really great. I do have one question for you, Christina, regarding the reviews on Indeed.com. How does an employer deal with any negative reviews that someone might review?
Yeah, that's a great question, Lindsay. And I get that a lot from our employers. It's inevitable, okay? Right? Nobody has a 5-star rating. No company has a 5-star rating unless you only have one review, and it's a 5-star one. So don't fret those ones that are lower than we'd like. What I would encourage you to think about and do, and you're actually able to do on Indeed, is respond to them, right? Show that you're listening, show that you heard them, and maybe even offer them an opportunity to, give you more information offline. So one of the things that we have seen and that job seekers have told us, particularly the younger ones, so think about the younger millennials and the newest generation, Gen Z, they've told us that when they see a negative review that has been responded to by the employer, they're more likely to forgive it instead of maybe putting stock into that, well, that 1-star review, this must be a pretty rough place. If the employer shows that they're listening, that they want to, fix any problems, or they want to learn more about situations, they're willing to forgive that, right? So it doesn't hold as much of a black mark in that job seeker's mind as we might anticipate that 1-star review. So, I would definitely encourage you to, check out the reviews that are on your Indeed company page, and, feel free to respond to those. Again, as we're thinking about how we might best respond to those types of things, just acknowledge them. Certainly if there are, oh, the management was unfair, or they didn't pay me overtime, we might want to address like, hey, this is not normal, or what should be expected. We want to hear more and make sure everything was handled appropriately. Please email us at, and I would just do a generic mailbox, questions@companyname.com or something like that.
Yeah.
And it doesn't open a conversation either. So that job seeker cannot then respond to our response. So it's just that one and done as well. So no fear there, but we've definitely seen it be impactful to respond to them.
Absolutely. It just certainly sounds like it would, be a lot more impactful and authentic to be able to respond to people. And, no one is used to seeing 100% perfect reviews.
Right.
No person, no company is a perfect person. So it's great to be authentic, to be able to respond that way.
Yeah.
Also with Indeed Apply, using that short, mobile friendly, fast application for people where they can use their Indeed resume. I just want to let people know that with iRecruit and that Indeed Apply integration, you are using the short application, which is definitely a good thing from a candidate experience perspective. But once you've got to know that candidate, you can also use your iRecruit account to request additional information, or go through Indeed to get those reviews, or those scores that you mentioned as well, which is really, really awesome.
Thanks for that, Lindsay. You're definitely more of the expert in the iRecruit platform than I am. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. I do have a question from Scott, who says that he's teaching HR, and what can we share with aspiring HR students regarding the future of human resources and opportunities that they will have post-COVID?
Yeah, great question, Scott, and thank you for helping to introduce the next generation to the world of HR. One of the things that we're seeing become more and more important in the world of HR, and particularly, definitely in TA, but it really does encompass HR overall, is this idea of worker happiness, right? Worker well-being. How are we, really meeting the candidate's needs, or candidate really is the employee, right? How are we meeting the employee's needs? And those have evolved over time. You might see, like, if you go to an Indeed company page, pick your big brand, like a Starbucks, or CVS Health or something. You'll be able to see. So Indeed actually asks questions of people that are leaving reviews, questions that are related to their happiness. at that organization. And it was something that Indeed really wanted to understand, is what drives worker happiness. And, we did a lot of research with Forrester, as well as some psychologists out in University of California, as well as those that work with the UN, to really figure out what are these things. And we have those 12 facets. And they cover things like, that inclusion, that belonging, but, also things like, I feel supported, and, I feel like I have the opportunity for growth, right? And really thinking about, I would say for HR students who are future HR professionals, really trying to understand the connection between the things that employees are wanting in a workplace, a modern workplace, and what are the things that we as HR can do to create and promote environments, conversations, benefits that all really align with those things that promote worker happiness. I think that that's something that would be, really, I would encourage those students and others to really start to learn and understand, because I imagine that it's not going anywhere, that it's definitely something that will loom large for HR and organizations for years to come.
Absolutely, especially when it relates to mental health and work-life balance. That is definitely going to be a big factor in the future.
Yes, we've learned a lot about that this year.
We certainly have, yes.
The silver lining to one of the silver linings to this pandemic is, really sort of remembering the human, right? Remembering there are people that we work with, and that empathy, that mental health, that flexibility, is becoming more and more important for workers and for companies to respond to as well.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Christina. And indeed, we really appreciate your presentation today. That was awesome. Thank you, everyone who has joined us. And if anyone does have any questions, here's my contact information as well. We will send a copy of the slides, and hopefully, if my recording turns out, we'll have a recording to share with you as well. And again, thank you so much for Christina. You were awesome, and hope everyone has a wonderful day. Thank you so much for joining us.